Hello students, this is Dr. Shabana Begum, Associate Professor of Zoology, Maharani Science College for Women, Bangalore, presenting a lecture on population ecology pertaining to BSc Zoology 5th semester under the paper entitled Environmental Biology and Ecology. In my previous lecture on primary and secondary productivity in an ecosystem, I have discussed about the concept of productivity and its types, that is primary and secondary productivity, and you all have learned that the concept of productivity is a good example to understand the energy flow through an ecosystem. Today, I am going to discuss about the meaning or definition of a population and the various attributes or the characteristics of a population such as density, natality, mortality and age distribution. So before that, the word population is derived from the Latin word populus, meaning people, and originally referred to as a group of people occupying a particular space at a given time. Population is a unit of ecosystem in which the energy flows and nutrients are recycled. It is a self-regulating unit exhibiting certain characters which I just mentioned, and these characters are also called as the attributes. While the population ecology deals with the individuals of the same species where aggregation, then intra and interspecific interactions such as competition, then aggression, territoriality, etc. occur. So in the first slide here, I have given the schematic diagram representing the growth of population where certain characteristic features, which are also called as factors, such as the birth, the immigration, death as well as emigration affect the size or density of or growth of a population. So here the word meaning of population is mentioned, a group of individuals of the same species who live in the same area and time. And the individuals of the population depend or rely on same resources and they interact among themselves as well as they interbreed. So the major characteristics of populations which I have discussed, I am going to discuss, you can say, in this particular session is the size and density of population, the natality, mortality and age distribution. As I already mentioned, the content of this session is to give the meaning of population, then what is population density, the natality, mortality and age distribution, which are all the attributes of a population. And the learning objectives once again is to understand the various attributes such as population density, natality, mortality and age distribution. Apart from that, to explicit the factors that affect the size and growth of the population. So once again, to start with, I will define population, which can be defined as a group of organisms of the same species or a group within which individuals may exchange genetic information occupying a particular area at a given time and has unique characteristics. And the population ecology is the study of population in relation to the environment. It includes environmental influences on population density and distribution, age structure and variations in population size. There are two types of populations, that is, according to Clark, single species or monospecies population where the population comprises of a single species, and the second one is the mixed or multi-species or polyspecies population where several species of plants and animals go to form a population. The population may be subdivided into demes or local populations, which are groups of interbreeding individuals, or you can say it is the smallest collective unit of a plant or animal population. I just mentioned that there are various attributes of a population, and let us discuss about them one by one. The first being the population density. So, population density can be defined as the number of individuals of a species per unit of area or volume at a given time. It is defined as the population size with reference to the unit space at a given time. Fine. So, about population density, there are some more points you should remember. The size of a population fluctuates, but it is stable when the number of deaths in the population equals the number of new arrivals. So, population density can be distinguished as crude density and specific density because of the patterns of dispersion of organisms in nature are different. The crude density is the density or number or mass per unit total space or in a given area. For example, the number of deers in a forest of 100 acres. While the specific or ecological or economic or niche density, it's called as, is the total number or the total biomass per unit of habitat or inhabitable area. For example, though the forest is large, all the deers may not be spread over 5 acres. They may be actually living in 0.5 acres of home range as the area has abundant food and water. Another important example to distinguish crude density and specific density in a plant species like Cassia Tora. Individuals are found more crowded in shady patches and few in other parts of the same area. Thus, density is calculated in total area, that is, the shady and exposed would be crude density, whereas the density value for only shady area would be ecological density. Next example is the study on fishes. So, when the lake dried in the winter or summer, the ecological density in the contracting pools of water increases as fishes are crowded into smaller and smaller water area. Thus, change in time or at a given time, water level and total number of fishes, the two densities are different. In a population of amoeba or paramecium, every hour there may be 100% increase in population density. And also the rate of increase in the density of population of a larger animal is much slower. Population may remain constant or fluctuate, or they may steadily increase or decrease by natality, immigration, mortality and emigration. There are two broad approaches to estimate population density. That is the absolute density, where the number of individuals per area or volume you have to calculate, and it is important for conservation or management. While the relative density deals with comparison of number of organisms. For example, two areas of equal sizes, which area has more organisms out of it, that is between area X and Y. Area X has more organisms than area Y. So, you can always say that the population density also displays distinctive characteristics at both high and low values. There are density dependent factors including competition, predation, migration and disease which intensify within populations as density increases. In contrast, density independent factors such as weather, fire regimes and flooding impact populations regardless of their specific densities. So here is a slide which will give you an information about the population growth rate. So here the change in the number of individuals, that is delta n, in a population over a specific time frame, that is delta t, such as annually, is known as the growth rate. So average rate of change is equal to delta n by delta t. There you can always say there are certain factors affecting population growth rates, such as the sex ratio, that is how many females versus males, generation time, that is at what age do females reproduce, and age structure, how many females at reproductive age is cohort, or how many females are found in which are of reproductive age. So factors which affect population growth are the birth and death rates. So birth rate, when it is more than the death rate, there is growth in the population. Next is immigration and emigration. So when immigration is more than emigration, definitely there is an increase in the growth of a population. So you can say population change is equal to births plus immigration minus deaths plus emigration. Fine. So when birth rate is equal to death rate, there is zero population growth. So the next attribute is natality. It's also known as birth rate. Fine. Natality is also known as the birth rate of an individual. So every population has the inherent ability to increase, which is called its natality. It is equal to the birth rate of a population. You may even say that the natality is the production of new individuals of any organism. These new individuals are born, hatched, germinated, or came into existence by means of asexual reproduction, such as the fission, or they arise by division, etc. So in human population, it's equivalent to the birth rate, which is the number of offsprings produced or female or per unit time. Again, the natality is divided or distinguished into two types. Maximum natality, also called as fecundity, is also called as absolute or potential or physiological natality. It is theoretical maximum production of new individuals under ideal conditions, which means that there are no ecological limiting factors and that reproduction is limited only by physiological factors. It is constant. Then the second type is called realized natality, also known as specific natality, also called as fertility. So in this case, the population increases under an actual existing specific environmental conditions. This is also designated as, I told you, fertility rate. It is not constant. For example, a woman in reality bears only 1 or 2 children due to the change in environment and her health condition, and the population of 50 women can produce only about 100 children or even less depending on the existing conditions. Paramecia in reality cannot reproduce at a high rate. In readily, the environmental conditions are not always favorable and the rate of reproduction becomes low. And also you might say the natality rate increases during the period of maturity and then falls again as the organism gets older. So the next characteristic of population is the mortality. So all of you have heard about the term mortality, also called as death rate. So it refers to death of individual. It's a measure of the frequency of occurrence of death in a defined population during a specified interval. Death rate is equal to the number of deaths recorded divided by number of people in the population into 100. So this mortality can be distinguished into two types: minimum mortality and realized mortality. So minimum mortality is the minimum number of deaths that occur when environmental conditions are ideal or favorable. The deaths that occur will be due to old age. It's also called theoretical death rate. While realized mortality or ecological mortality is the actual death rate that occurs in reality under the existing environmental conditions. It is variable and could be high or low. Fine. So for minimum mortality, even under the best conditions, individuals may die due to old age, and it is determined by their physiological longevity. On an average, it is about 70 years for human beings. So to give an example of realized mortality, suppose if the lifespan of a population is about 70 years, an epidemic may break and death rate will be high, or if there is some improvement in the living conditions, the average lifespan may increase, bringing the realized mortality lower. Then you should know what is meant by vital index. For 1 mark, they may ask a question on it. So vital index is the ratio of births to deaths within a population during a given time multiplied by 100. In fact, survivor rates are very important than the death rates and expressed by survivorship curves. So you can say the pattern of mortality with age is best illustrated by these survivorship curves, which are plotted or which plot the numbers surviving to a particular age. So here say that the slide will give you an insight about the survivorship curves. Fine. Since it is difficult to calculate the death rate in a population, then specific mortality can be expressed by survivorship or survival curves, which are drawn by plotting survivorship date against time, then taking time interval on the horizontal or x-axis and survivorship data on the vertical or the y-axis. These survivorship curves are of 3 types: type 1, type 2 and type 3. Type 1 survivorship curve is convex curve. Fine. So it is a convex curve. So large species such as the humans and large mammals as well as rabbits, then mountain deers, etc. exhibit this curve. These animals in which individuals tend to live out their lifespan. That means you can say type 1 convex curve, which is mentioned here. It reproduces fewer number of offsprings and devote much time and energy in caring for their young. It's also called as case-selected species. This relatively flat curve reflects low juvenile mortality, with most individuals living to old age. Then type 2 survivorship curve is almost a diagonal curve. When the mortality rates are constant at all ages, this curve is obtained. For example, such curves are obtained in the life history of Hydra, then adult stages of many birds, etc. So you can mention the species that produce many offspring such as lizards, then perching birds, rodents, but provide little care for them. Hence, here a constant probability of dying at any age is shown by the type 2 survivorship curve, and it is evident as a straight line with a constant slope that decreases over time towards 0. The third type of survivorship curve is a concave curve. This type of curve is exhibited by those animals in which the mortality rate is very high in early life. For example, in case of oyster and other invertebrates, fishes, etc. So you can also say that these will give you the information about the R selected, that is small r selected species. In many insects or shellfishes, the life history is initially very steep, which is reflective of very high mortality among the young, but flattens out as those individuals who reach maturity survive for a relatively longer time. Once again, some more information about population size is the number of individuals in a population. For example, a population of insects might consist of 100 individual insects or many more. Population size influences the chances of a species surviving or going extinct. Generally, very small populations are at greatest risk of extinction. The population size is affected by number of births, that is small b, number of deaths, small d, immigrants, that is I, and emigrants, that is E. So growth rate R, which is already mentioned in the earlier slide, of a population is the rate of change in size. So R, that is the growth rate, is equals to B minus D, that is the number of births minus number of deaths when migration is not a factor. The populations increase in size as long as birth rate, that is natality, is greater than the death rate. Finally, in today's session, I am going to discuss about the population age distribution, that is the age structure. So the age structure describes the number of individuals in age class as a ratio of one class to another. So age classes can be specific categories such as people in the same age range. Then what is age distribution? So the relative abundance or percentage of organisms of various age groups in the population is called as age distribution of population. The age distribution attributes can be represented schematically in the form of what are called as age pyramids. So on the basis of age, a population may ecologically be divided into three age groups, that is the pre-reproductive, reproductive and post-reproductive age groups. So here the pre-reproductive age groups is designated in yellow bars. Then reproductive age groups are represented in the bluish bars, and the post-reproductive individuals are indicated in the pink bars. So here you can say, in case of human beings, pre-reproductive age group will be comprising of children and young adolescents which are under the age of 15 years. Yellow color, as I said just now. Then the reproductive age group is the working age populations, which is greenish blue, and it is between the 15 to 46 to 64 years. Post-reproductive or elderly populations will be there, which will be in the age group of 65 years and older than that, that is indicated as the pinkish bars. So the ratio of these age groups in a population determine the current reproduction status of a population and may indicate what is expected in the future. So based on the age pyramids, there are three types I told you already. They are the rapidly growing or expanding populations, which depict ultimately the populations that have a larger percentage of people in younger age groups. So in case of expanding populations with this shape usually have high fertility rates with lower life expectancies. The second type is the stable or stationary populations. These are the populations that show a somewhat equal proportion of the population in each group. In the age groups, the population is stable, you can mention. Then there are also declining populations where the age is depicted as populations where there is a lower percentage of younger people. Constitutive population pyramids show declining birth rates since each succeeding age group is getting smaller and smaller. So finally, the outcome of the study being the populations are a group of individuals belonging to the same species that live in the same region at the same time. Two important measures of a population are the population size and the population density. The population density of organisms determines how successful they will be and what effects they will have on their environment. The rate of increase of a population depends on the birth and death rates, which are strongly influenced by the population age structure. Further, birth and death rates usually determine the basic pyramid shape and migration. Now, few more MCQs, that is multiple choice questions, at the end of my lecture. The first one being, which of the following statements define the density of population? That is option A, number of persons living per unit area, B, number of persons living in a country, C, change in the number of inhabitants of a country during a specific period of time, and D is absolute numbers added every year. So can you guess the answer? So the answer is A, that is the population density depends upon the number of persons living per unit area. Question MCQ, second one, rapid decline in the population due to high mortality rate is called A, population density, B, population crash, C is population explosion, and D is none of these. The answer being the option B, that is population crash. The third MCQ is, which of the following factors has a negative effect on the population growth rate? Options are emigration, immigration, natality, and D is fecundity. And the answers are A, option A, emigration. So emigration is a factor which has a negative effect on population growth. Next question. The ratio between mortality and natality is called. Options are A, vital index, B, population ratio, C, density coefficient, and D is census ratio. So the answer is the option A, that is the vital index, which I have already discussed. One more question. If the age distribution is plotted for a population, the resulting structure is called as A, age graph, B, age curve, C, age pyramid, and D is age diagram. And the answer is the answer C, which is the age pyramid. One more MCQ is, the proportion of old individuals is maximum in option A, declining population, B, stable population, C is expanding population, and D is none of the above. The answer being option A, which is the declining population that is discussed just now. So the proportion of old individuals is maximum in declining population. Which of the following survivorship curve is suitable for the organisms who breed several times during the course of their lifespan? So the answers are type 4, B type 3, C type 2 and D is type 1. So the answer is D, that is in type 1 individuals. Which one is a case selected species? Options are Aspergillus, B is human, C is Taracaxum, then D is grass. So the answer is B, that is human, is a case selected species. So now the reference